And until you can bring something credible,
I'm still waiting for an answer to my question. If Bill Clinton was forced... No, wait, but I want to... Hold on, I am asking a question.
For you to sit here at this table and say that the victims are the people who have emails in this thing and not the women who were trafficked, it is sickening and it makes the country sick.
Okay, let me ask you, you've also made the point that the FBI has not talked to them, okay? Even just to get to the beginning.
Thousands of victims, and we are never going to see any justice for them, I think is absolutely...
But the committee...
Yes,
the committee
thousands, dude.
The
We're just amplifying.
Said,
I just want to know
amplifying.
who was murdered.
but the committee said that they'd spoke...
Folks who are viewed non-credible.
What about
No,
them?
what about the NPR thing that just came out? And they've actually removed them. You sound crazy.
No.
And the poor women who have gone through this to just sit here and say, oh, he's only in there because of crimes that were removed.
Credibly, or anything, like literally nothing that.
You're
would
talking about it.
stand
You're talking
in
about there being
the court of
emails.
law.
No, you're talking
in the court
about
of law.
Yeah, I'd love to see him in a court of law. I'd like to see him deposed. I'd like to see the rules. I'd like to see them unredacted. Come on, you cannot seriously believe this. This is so lame, man. You know he's not in there because of his email drips.
No, he literally is.
That's so lame. We all know why Trump is
What about the FBI interviews?
Did you see how fast that energy shifted? The moment Trump's name gets mentioned, the entire room tightens up. Suddenly, it's email drips. Suddenly, it's innocent until proven guilty. Suddenly, it's legal technicalities and careful language. But when it was Hillary Clinton, when it was Bill Clinton, no hesitation, drag them in, put them under oath, demand transparency. So let's just be honest here. Why does accountability only apply to Democrats? If Bill Clinton can testify with no charges, no indictment, just his name appearing in files, then what exactly is stopping Donald Trump from doing the same? What's the fear? Because if you truly believe he did nothing wrong, then testimony should be easy, quick, simple, over in a day. Instead, we're watching excuses pile up in real time. And that right there tells you everything about how this is being handled. But I want to know what you think. Is this equal justice or is this political protection? Let me know as we get into this.
Tonight, the former president is denying having any knowledge of Epstein's crimes, and his message was loud and clear. He saw nothing, he did nothing, and he did nothing wrong. Now, those were his words under oath in a historic deposition as he answered questions about his past relationship with Epstein. One of the big takeaways was that Clinton addressed this photo of himself in a hot tub with a woman whose face is redacted. He says he did not know her and he did not have sex with her. Clinton's testimony caps off a high-profile 2 days in the Republican-led panel's Epstein probe. Hillary Clinton spoke yesterday. The former president's name appears many times in the Epstein files, and so does the current president, President Trump's, and neither have been accused of any crimes. The question is now, what does this mean for Trump? Here's the top Democrat on the House Oversight panel.
The House Republicans have set a new precedent, and that new precedent now includes bringing in for depositions presidents, former presidents, and first ladies. We now want President Trump to come in and to testify under oath in front of the Oversight Committee. We want the First Lady, who we know had a relationship as well with Jeffrey Epstein, to come in under oath and testify to the Oversight Committee.
And President Trump seems very much aware of that precedent.
I don't like seeing him deposed, but, they certainly went after me a lot more than that. I don't like seeing him. Look, I like him, and I don't like seeing him deposed.
Again, the only time you will hear President Trump saying nice things about Bill Clinton is when it comes to the Epstein files. It's really weird, but that being said, I mean, is President Trump worried? Should he be worried, Peter, that he could be brought in?
Why?
Because is there not a precedent that has been set?
It is true that Donald Trump's name is mentioned hundreds, thousands of times in the Epstein files, because the Epstein files include his entire email inbox that has every news digest that occurred while Trump was the #1 cultural figure.
Come on, you cannot
for
seriously
president.
believe this. This is so lame, man. You know he's not in there because of his email drips.
No, he literally is.
That's so lame. We all know why Trump is in there.
What about the FBI interviews that they withheld?
The same ones who are from folks who are viewed non-credible.
What about them?
What about the NPR thing that just came out? They've actually removed them. You sound crazy. And the poor women who have gone through this to just sit here and say, oh, he's only in there because of his emails. That's not true. There are people who have actually credibly accused him of crimes that were removed.
Credibly or anything, like literally nothing that
you're talking about it. You're talking about there being emails. No, you're talking about
of law.
Yeah, I'd love to see him in a court of law. I'd like to see him deposed. I'd like to see the rules. I'd like to see them unredacted.
Excuse me.
No, it is absolutely bananas just to sit here and be like, oh, he's only in there for that reason.
Let Peter finish.
There was one member of Congress who voted against this because of all the hysteria. Higgins from Louisiana, and God bless him, because he said, listen, we have never done this in the past where you release just everything, not relevant files, everything. And so there are folks who are having their lives ruined because they emailed somebody, because they were mentioned peripherally, because Epstein said, hey, look at this thing this person did. And the next thing you know, they're in the Epstein files.
Can I speak whenever he's done?
When he's done, you can speak.
Great.
Go ahead.
People who have had their lives ruined are not people whose names happen to be in these files. The people who have, I don't know why you're looking at me like that.
I'm
the
waiting
people
for
who
the
have had their
actual
lives
crime that
ruined.
we're talking about.
Can we talk about the tragedy and crisis
now
of this
you gotta let her
horrific
finish,
crimes
okay?
that include murder and sex trafficking and torture and rape of children and young people without dissolving into this is hysteria? It's not hysteria. There are literally millions and millions of pages, and we are not looking into them. We are redacting them. Our government is covering them up, and Trump is scrambling around to get his name redacted and telling everyone he's totally exonerated when he is not. Then we're spending all of our time going after the Clintons right now. And I don't know a single Democrat or leftist who hasn't publicly said if Clinton is proved part of the Epstein files, we should lock him up. Lock him up. Throw away the key. Lock her up. Lock anyone up who partook or helped or enabled this group of horrible people with their repulsive crimes. But for you to sit here at this table and say that the victims are the people who have emails in this thing and not the women who were trafficked, it is sickening and it makes the country sick.
Okay, let me ask a question here.
Who was murdered?
Hey, hold on a second. If President Clinton is mentioned in the Epstein files, there are photos of him with Epstein, just like there are photos of Trump with Epstein. But there are no, just to put it in your framework, no credible accusations against him. Why did he testify today? And why did the president not testify today? Because it seems to me they're in the same boat.
Well, I think, first of all, I would like to say that if Peter Mayer is willing to take up for Donald Trump in a situation like this, not take up, but just be honest about something, then I think that we should probably listen. I totally agree. Look, first of all, I understand your passion, and I'm with you that we have to get justice for these victims. But that's not how our country works. We work off of the fact that people are innocent until they're proven guilty.
Okay.
And until you can bring something credible,
I'm still waiting for an answer to my question. If Bill Clinton was forced, wait, but I want to hold on. I am asking a question. If Bill Clinton was forced to testify despite the absence of credible accusations against him, what is the justification for not having President Trump do the same?
Has the committee called him?
What is okay, well let me play what James Comer says about why he's not going to call President Trump. Listen.
Ranking Member Garcia asked President Clinton, quote, should President Trump be called to answer questions from this committee? And President Clinton said, that's for you to decide. And the president went on to say that the president, Trump, has never said anything to me to make me think he was involved.
So he says, okay, close the book. We're done here because President Clinton said he'd never talked to President Trump about doing crimes with Epstein. Are you kidding me?
If the FBI has these files and there's an investigation that has went on, Democrats are the only one, by the way, who's put anybody in jail. Hello, Ghislaine Maxwell. And this is about politics. We know it's about politics, and they just said it's about politics, and we all know it's about politics. Even the Clintons who said, sure, I don't want to testify until they make me testify. They made him testify. They were like, well, let's do it out in the open. I have had one Republican after another come up and go, look at all the crazy stuff Donald Trump's doing. Well, at least he's doing it out in the open, so it's got to be okay. Let's have this transparency. Democrats are screaming that right now. And I'm with you, Leah. Whoever did anything wrong, let's put them all in jail. I don't care.
Hold on, Beth. Let me let Beth.
I think you're all slightly barking up the wrong tree completely. Nobody.
Let's slow this down because this is where the hypocrisy hits like a freight train. Republicans dragged Bill Clinton in to testify No criminal charges, no indictment, just his name in the files and photos with Epstein. Fine. If that's the standard, then apply it evenly. But the moment Donald Trump's name enters the conversation, suddenly it's hysteria. Suddenly it's a witch hunt. Suddenly we're all supposed to pretend his relationship with Epstein was just casual Palm Beach networking. Really? You can't demand transparency for your political enemies and immunity for your political allies. That's not justice. That's protection. And what's wild is they don't even realize how obvious it looks. Trump says he's exonerated without ever testifying under oath. How does that work? Since when do you clear your own name by declaration? If you've got nothing to hide, you walk in, you raise your right hand, and you answer the questions. That's what strength looks like. What we're seeing instead is deflection. And voters aren't stupid. They see it.
Is ever going to go behind bars for any sort of sexual impropriety on this island. Why? Because there's no proof. At this stage, it is going to be one word against another. And if you're going off emails, they are always open to interpretation. You're literally looking at syntax. When it says things like, thank you for the young girls. Okay, was that a young girl who was 14 or was that a young girl who was 21 and it was a 70-year-old man? There is no hard evidence in these emails. What we've done in the UK is looked at the financial impropriety, which can be traced. So Prince Andrew has been arrested, ex-former prince. He's been arrested and investigated. Peter Mandelson, who was the ambassador of the UK to this country until a few months ago, actually, and then he got arrested a couple of weeks ago. They have a paper trail in which they say, I'm just coming out of 10 Downing Street. I'm going to call you about policy. Now, that is a crime. That is misconduct in public office.
That's a crime. That's a crime you can prove. It's the same reason that we got Al Capone.
It's also funny because that might be a crime in the UK. It is not a crime in the UK. But let me just hold on a second. Let me just. I think you're very correct, right? A true investigation would actually look at things that we can prove. Right. But unfortunately, we're dealing with the political circus that we have been given. Okay, we're living in the world that we have, and in this particular world, the Republicans on this committee have decided to call a former president and a former first lady, and now they claim that even having done that, the current president and current first lady, who also have ties to Epstein, are immune from similar testimony. I am still trying to understand how that makes sense.
I mean, I think the distinction, and again, there should be no reason why anyone doesn't testify, even if it's just to say, answer it. And Trump has talked plenty about his break with Epstein. They were friends. He's been on video with him. And then there was a falling out, I think, around 2004, prior to a lot of these allegations.
No, everything he says is so true.
But what I'm saying
it's not under oath.
The difference here is that, former President Clinton traveled with Epstein. He's not in photos socially, he's in photos traveling and all this, and there's people with blacked out boxes, which automatically makes it massively incriminating.
Abby, to answer your question, I think anyone involved should be able to go testify and get justice for these victims and closure for the families of those that are no longer with us. I don't think there should be any. I want to just agree with your point. The point that I was making earlier is that you can't just throw out empty accusations at people until they've been charged with a crime, and you have the evidence to do that. That was my point. But I agree with you that if people are implicated, then they should go testify to either clear their name or provide the facts.
What are they going to say? What are they going to say? Clinton was not going to turn around when there's pictures of him in a hot tub and they're going to go, who was that woman next to you? He's not going to go, oh yeah, she was 15 actually, I remember.
Yeah, I tend to agree.
It's a complete waste of everybody's time and money.
This whole thing, to use your phraseology, the entire enterprise on Capitol Hill is barking up the wrong tree because there are real investigations that could be, and it's not clear that anybody in the government has ever done it or is currently doing it. And here's just one of the Epstein survivors, Jess Michaels. She's actually responding to Congresswoman Anna Paulina Luna, who has claimed repeatedly that Trump has been exonerated. But she says this, we as a collective have not cleared the president of wrongdoing. He is a person of...
Notice that the pattern here, every time the conversation moves toward real transparency, toward unredacted files, toward testimony under oath, the energy changes. The excuses pile up. There's no proof. It's political. It's complicated. But justice is always complicated when powerful people are involved. The question isn't whether Trump is guilty. The question is, why he's being shielded from the same scrutiny applied to others. That's the part no one on that side can answer without twisting themselves into knots.
He should testify. You don't need to lie. You don't need to lie, obstruct, or delay transparency when you're innocent. And they've also made the point that the FBI has not talked to them, okay? Even just to get to the beginning of the story. I'm not saying that's the end of the story, but the FBI has not talked to these victims. So the question of whether there is anybody out there doing anything real outside of this political madness remains on the table today after a week.
But that's why I disagree with what Bev said, where you said there's not going to be any people put behind bars for these sexual crimes, because you can't just go through emails and be like this. Yeah. There are lots of other things that we don't know about. They haven't talked to the victims. The victims haven't said this is the person, that then they could have then followed the evidence through the emails without the redactions and do it. Go and search the farm. Go and search the thing in you might not be able to get anything in New Mexico. Thank you. Go with body dogs and see if there's anything there. There might be a lot of evidence. So to say there's thousands of victims and we are never going to see any justice for them, I think is absolutely...
Well, the committee...
Yes,
the committee
thousands, dude.
We're just amplifying.
I'm not amplifying.
Who was murdered?
But the committee said that they'd spoken to the victims, and they said they've spoken to the victims, and not one of them has said President Trump did anything wrong. So if the victim, where is this crime?
But that's what she
if there
just
are
said.
no victims,
they haven't
if
said
there
he
was
did nothing.
somebody.
But Donald Trump has said it's not just.
I mean,
it's
she
not
just
just Donald
said,
Trump.
she
It's
said
his whole
here,
orbit.
we have not cleared President Trump of wrongdoing. So I don't know the truth of the matter, but that's what she says.
It's
and
his
she's one of the
associates. It's his cabinet
and look,
members.
but again,
It's his
I think that we are, the point actually about the Trump thing is not to get stuck on Trump.
Right.
It's actually about whether or not there is equanimity being handed out here by people who are in power. And the answer is very clearly no. They didn't show up at Lex Wexner's deposition. He is somebody who is very close to Epstein. Financially, yes, the money. Right. So again, this is a circus, it's a sideshow, we all know that, but the victims have a right to be pissed off about this.
The real question here is, what happens in 10 months when the new Democratic majority in the House is sworn in? What changes and what questions are asked when Robert Garcia is not the ranking member, but he is the chairman of that committee and could subpoena somebody to come testify? Whether there's something there or not, whether whatever everybody's saying is true or not, at least we could ask questions there. The question is, what happens if he don't show up? What if he just gives them the middle finger and says, I ain't got to come?
But Democrats had the House and the Senate from 2021 to 2020.
And we put people in jail.
And the presidency.
Well, Maxwell's in jail, and there was an investigation.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, Epstein was arrested during Trump's presidency. Maxwell, I think, was arrested, and then she was finally tried and charged, during the first part of the first 2 years of Biden's presidency when the Democrats were in charge. Sure, but I'm cynical on this.
I take your point about. I take your point that this has not been a major issue for Democrats. I wouldn't say the justice system is political. I think that if Democrats want to make this a real issue and not just a political football, they're going to have to prove that they're really interested in getting to the bottom of this.
That's the point.
And that we will find out if they do take control of Congress what they end up doing with it.
And the bigger issue as well is, who was Jeffrey Epstein working for? I'm sure the politicians are all happy for us to be talking about potential sexual crimes. What about the political crimes? It looks like he was working for every government around the world. Working for Russia, working for America, working for the British, working for whoever would buy his compromising material, whatever all those cameras are doing on that island.
Alluded to that today, so that's a very big unanswered question here. Next for us.
Here's the bottom line. This isn't about left versus right. It's about consistency. You cannot scream, lock her up for years, build an entire political movement on accountability, and then suddenly decide accountability is optional when it gets uncomfortable. If the standard is testimony under oath, then apply it evenly. If the standard is transparency, then release it all. No carve-outs, no special rules. And think about the psychology of this. If Donald Trump truly had nothing to worry about, why not testify? Why not settle it in one afternoon? Raise your hand, answer the questions, walk out and say, I told you so. Instead, we get deflection. We get praise for Bill Clinton in this very narrow context. We get sudden silence about lock her up. That shift alone should make people pause. And before someone jumps in with there's no evidence, remember this: investigations require participation. You don't prove innocence by refusing scrutiny. You don't prove transparency by redacting half the record. You prove it by facing the process head on. The real tragedy here is that the actual victims, get buried under political games. Their stories become ammunition instead of priorities. And that's disgusting. If there's nothing there, fine. Let the process show that. But shielding powerful figures from even basic questioning sends a message. It says some people are above the system. And that's the part Americans are tired of. Not just Democrats. Not just independents. Americans. Equal rules. Equal standards. Equal consequences. So the question isn't complicated. If Clinton can testify, why can't Trump? If the answer is anything other than he should, then we're not talking about justice anymore. We're talking about loyalty. And loyalty to politicians should never outrank loyalty to truth. What do you think? Should every name in those files testify under oath, no exceptions? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Let's talk about it.